Welcome to today's session. Stop wrestling with ISO standards and join other smart professionals who are leveraging AI's revolution with compliance management. This is ISO Brain, and you can already see from the homepage what is going on. This is one platform where everything is connected. Your library, academy, AI tools, everything is in one place. And the reason that that matters is most people who are doing ISO compliance work, they are constantly jumping between things. A PDF here, a spreadsheet there, a training platform somewhere else. It's fragmented and it's slow. But what ISO Brain does is it pulls all of that into one system where you can learn the standards, test your knowledge, and actually apply it without having to switch a bunch of tabs or lose train of thought. And you can see here, this is built specifically for ISO. This is not a generic AI tool that has just been pointed at compliance. The whole thing is designed around how ISO standards actually work in practice. So over the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to walk you through our main features. I'm going to show you what each one actually does rather than just talking about it. And so we're going to do some live demos. And my goal here is really to help you understand what all of this could look like for you and your organization. So the first feature I'm showing you is Mastery Lab. And one of the first things that you'll notice is that when you go to complete your assessment, it is going to ask you about your industry, your management level, the department you're in. And why this is important is that this is an assessment that is built specifically around your operational reality. This is not a one-size-fits-all compliance quiz. So once you actually kick off the quiz, you'll receive 30 questions tailored to you. You'll have 15 minutes. And what it makes this really smart is rather than a standard test, it's adaptive. So if you're struggling on a particular clause, it's going to drill deeper into that area to find the root of your misunderstanding. So not only are you going to receive a score, but you're also going to receive a precise picture of where your knowledge actually stands. And what you get back is a competency report with targeted recommendations. You can also see how you stack up against other professionals on the leaderboard. And the real value, though, we feel, is that finding a gap in your knowledge takes 10 minutes and costs nothing. If an external auditor had to find that exact same gap during a formal review, that could cost you your certification. This is a private diagnostic before anyone else looks at your systems. And it isn't theoretical. An automotive quality team of ours used the Mastery Lab ahead of an external review, and it was able to flag 2 critical gaps in their engineering department that nobody had caught. They fixed it before the audit, and they kept their Tier 1 supplier certification intact. And that's the kind of thing that the Mastery Lab is designed to catch. The next feature here is the ISO library. This is basically a searchable, interactive database of global ISO standards. So instead of just buying a static PDF and manually hunting through it, everything in here is actually usable. So you can see I am navigating to the environmental management standards. I'm then going to find ISO 14001 here. And rather than reading through dense regulatory text, I can just generate notes. Plain English, structured, ready to use in seconds. That alone cuts out hours of document scanning that most compliance teams are doing manually. What's also worth mentioning is that the summaries are built on the verified official standards. So you're not getting a watered down interpretation, you are getting the real content made readable. You keep the accuracy, but you get to lose all of that headache. A good example of why this matters was an environmental compliance manager. They had an unexpected dispute around waste processing requirements. Instead of just digging through PDFs, they pulled up the exact framework in here within seconds and had what they needed to resolve it on the spot. There were no delays, no consultants, and no guesswork. So now this is the Academy. As you can see here, there are structured certification pathways across quality, information security, environmental, health, safety, and more. So whatever standard you're working toward, there is a dedicated path for it. And what makes this different from a standard training platform is that it connects directly to your mastery lab results. So if you've already proven competency in certain areas, it'll skip past those and focus your time on what actually needs work. No sitting through hours of content that you already know, which is honestly the biggest complaint that people have about corporate compliance training. So while you're learning, there are AI tools that are built right into the sidebar, auto-generated study guides, briefing docs, smart notes, and there's an explain like I'm five button for when a clause is just genuinely very confusing. The last one is even more useful than it sounds when you are deep in a dense ISO framework at like 4 p.m. The learning system is designed around actually understanding and applying the standards under pressure, not just memorizing them long enough to pass a test. And that distinction matters a lot when you're in a real audit situation. Our results, they speak for themselves. 98% of people pass on the platform. And a logistics coordinator used the Academy's certification path. They leaned on those AI tools to work through the complex structural content. And they went from a mid-level operations to a senior internal auditor in just a matter of weeks. So now this is the AI Assistant Hub. This is where the platform really starts to pull ahead of anything out there that is currently available for ISO compliance. The key thing to understand is that this isn't a general AI tool that's been pointed at compliance documents. It's a generative AI engine that is trained specifically on global ISO standards and regulatory frameworks. And that matters because generic tools like ChatGPT or standard AI assistants, they are prone to giving you plausible sounding compliance advice that's just wrong. This one is grounded in the actual verified standards. And the way it works is a 3-stage process. You can see it here. It injects your inputs or documents and analyzes them against the relevant ISO clauses and relationships. And then it generates structured, usable outputs, whether that's guidance, procedures, or formal reports. It connects across 3 specialist modules: the ISO Navigator for mapping your compliance framework, Audit Lens for your audit workflow, and Benchmark AI for gap analysis. Each one handles a different part of the compliance lifecycle, and they all feed into each other rather than sitting in isolation. A small consulting firm we worked with, they didn't have a full compliance department. They used the AI assistant as essentially their digital compliance co-pilot. They fed it their operational constraints and they got clause interpretations back, and they were able to generate compliant documentation for their internal manuals. They hit an aggressive audit deadline without needing to hire a single external consultant. So now this is Audit Lens, and this is probably the most impressive tool in the whole platform to get to watch in action. What I'll do here is I will just simply drop the URL for a website. I'm going to use DHL in this case. I'm going to let it initialize. And what it's doing in the background is it is pulling in context about the organization so that it can run a meaningful audit against it rather than a generic one. You can see there are a few options for me to choose here. I'm going to select this last one. And what it does is it kicks off a full 13-step audit process: plan, do, check, act. The whole life cycle is structured and automated. And the reason this is a big deal is that traditional audit prep means someone is manually working through Excel checklists. They are cross-referencing documentation by hand, and they're just hoping that they haven't missed anything. Versus Audit Lens, which acts more like a forensic investigator. It is scanning for nonconformities, flagging clause consistencies, and connecting issues across your documentation in a way that a manual review often misses. And there's an Audit AI assistant that is also built right into the interface. You can ask specific questions as you go, which is genuinely useful if you are in a mid-audit and you need a quick answer without having to break your workflow. Now, this is ISO Navigator, and the best way to describe it is a personalized compliance roadmap builder. So instead of trying to figure out which standards apply for your specific organization and what documentation you need, you actually can just feed it your context and it'll work for you. So I'm going to analyze the same website, DHL. I'm just simply dropping the URL right into the data generator. And what it's doing, it is pulling in the organization's context, figuring out the operational footprint. So I will now select an option, wait for it to process. I will then choose an ISO standard that I want to work with, and I can wait for it to generate. What you will see is that it will produce an actual policy document. It'll be structured, compliant, tailored specifically to that organization's context. That is not a template that is filled in. It is built from scratch around the business. And the reason why this is so valuable is that most organizations are dealing with multiple certifications. These types of organizations are doing all this manually. They're cross-referencing, they're overlapping requirements between different standards, they're maintaining separate documents, and they're hoping that nothing contradicts. Well, Navigator maps all of that simultaneously, and where requirements do overlap, it will build one unified document that satisfies both. If you need to refine anything, again, there's a contextual AI chat built right into it. So you can ask it to rewrite specific sections, no lagging reports delivered after the problem has already happened. This is all happening in minutes, as you see. And that's the real pitch for this tool. A startup who worked with it, they used it to upload their core operational guidelines before entering a very regulated market. And it was able to flag missing requirements that they didn't know they had. They fixed them, updated the documentation, and got to the market ahead of schedule. What would have taken an external consultant weeks took this platform minutes. They were able to adjust the language without having to start over. Okay, now this is Benchmark AI, and I want to show you something really practical here because this is the one that tends to land the hardest with people. I am just going to go over into ChatGPT, which is a tool I'm sure that you have used many times. And I am going to ask it to just draft a detailed risk management program for a logistics company. And I'm just going to copy the ChatGPT results, okay? This is the kind of thing that teams produce internally all the time. AI generated or manually written, it doesn't matter. The question is always, how does it actually measure up against the real standard? So I'm going to go ahead and paste what it gave me into this document here. I'm now selecting ISO 31000 as the standard that I want to benchmark it against. That's the risk management guidelines. And then down here in the improvement goal, I'm just going to tweak it so that it actually compares what the ChatGPT results were to this ISO standard. And then it knows exactly what we are measuring against. I've hit benchmark, and let's watch what now comes back. Okay, you can see it's broken down into what is working, where the gaps are. There is a clear action plan to fix them, the strengths, the specific gaps. No consultant was needed, no weeks. This has literally taken the platform minutes. There's an optimized roadmap, ordered in high to medium to low priority. There are various features that you can get in minutes. You also get an overall score at the beginning, all within a few moments. Okay, to close off, this is the pricing and the billing model. This is worth flagging because it's not what most people expect. We are not doing subscriptions. There are no auto renewals, just a one-time payment for a month of access. We have 3 tiers starting at $65 up to $100 for the full suite, including all the AI tools that we have just been through today. And when your month ends, everything you've generated in that month, it stays yours. All those documents, reports, policy outputs, they are saved and they are accessible indefinitely. We're not holding you hostage into renewing for another month just to get your own work back. There's also a free account to get started with no credit card required. So if anything in the last 20 minutes or so caught your attention, that is your obvious first step. Go have a look around, see how it fits into your workflow. Visit isobrain.ai to get started.